The night was very cold. Snow covered the ground like a thick white blanket. The wind blew hard, making small piles of snow move along the empty streets. It was winter, the hardest time for the poor people of the village. Amina was only 10 years old. She was very thin and wore old, torn clothes. Her feet were bare, even though the snow was freezing cold. She walked slowly down the street, looking tired and hungry. Her small hands were shaking, and her lips were blue from the cold. Amina's stomach growled loudly. She had not eaten for 2 days. Her mother was gone, and her father had left the village a long time ago. There was no one to help her. The bakery was the only place with food, but the fresh bread was expensive. She had no money. That night, Amina made a decision. She could not wait anymore. She went to the bakery and looked inside. The warm light showed many fresh breads on the shelves. The smell was strong and sweet. Her mouth watered. Amina's heart beat fast. She looked around to make sure no one was watching. Then, with shaky hands, she reached out and took a small loaf of bread. Her eyes filled with tears. She knew it was wrong, but she had no choice. Suddenly, a loud voice shouted, "Stop! Thief!" A group of villagers came running. They had seen Amina take the bread. Some were angry, some were sad, but no one stopped them. The village leader, a tall man with a cold face, grabbed Amina's arm. "You must pay for this," he said loudly. "You cannot steal and get away." Amina was scared. She tried to explain, "Please, I was hungry. I have nothing to eat." But the villagers did not listen. They tied her hands with rough ropes. Then, without a word, they took her outside to the cold, snowy street. They tied Amina to a wooden post in the middle of the village square. The wind blew harder now, and snowflakes landed on her hair and face. Her teeth chattered, and she wrapped her arms around herself, trying to keep warm. People gathered around, watching, in silence. Some whispered, some shook their heads, but no one came close to help. Amina's eyes searched the crowd. She hoped someone would feel sorry for her, but the faces were hard and cold. "Why are you so cruel?" she thought. "I only wanted to live." Minutes passed like hours. The cold grew stronger. Her body became numb. She wished she could disappear. Her small fingers were turning red and blue. Tears ran down her cheeks, freezing in the cold air. She prayed silently, "Please, someone help me." Suddenly, a movement caught her eye. From the edge of the crowd, a dark shadow moved slowly toward her. It was not one of the villagers. The figure was tall and walked carefully in the snow. Amina's heart jumped. Could this be the help she was waiting for? The villagers noticed. The figure, too. They looked surprised and some stepped back. The shadow came closer. The snow fell gently on the figure's shoulders, but the face stayed hidden under a heavy hood. No one spoke. Amina tried to call out, but her voice was too weak. The shadow stopped near her. For a moment, there was silence. Then a soft voice whispered, "Don't be afraid, little one." The voice was kind and calm. It gave Amina a small spark of hope. She looked up, but the shadow did not take off the hood. The stranger reached into a small bag and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. Slowly, the stranger began to untie Amina's hands. The rough ropes fell away. Amina rubbed her wrists and looked into the stranger's eyes for the first time. They were warm and gentle. "Come with me," the stranger said quietly. "You don't belong here." Amina hesitated. She wanted to believe, but fear held her back. "Who are you?" she asked softly. The stranger smiled but did not answer. Suddenly, voices called from the crowd. The villagers were angry and shouting, "Stop! Let her go!" The stranger took Amina's hand and pulled her away quickly. They disappeared into the dark streets, leaving behind the cold, the snow, and the angry villagers. Amina's heart pounded fast. She felt safe for the first time that night. But questions filled her mind. Who was this stranger? Why did he help her? And where would they go now? The cold night seemed a little less scary as they walked faster. The snow continued to fall, covering their footprints behind them, and the village, full of silence and anger, was left alone with the empty post where Amina had stood. The village was far behind now. The cold wind chased them as the stranger and Amina walked through dark, narrow streets. The snow was still falling, soft and quiet. Amina held the stranger's hand tightly, her small fingers curled around his rough glove. She wanted to ask many questions, but the cold made her lips freeze. Instead, she just looked up at him. He wore a long coat, old but clean, and his face was partly hidden under a thick hood. His eyes shone softly in the moonlight. After a few minutes, they stopped, in front of a small broken door. The stranger knocked softly, then pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was warm and smelled like wood smoke. A small fire burned in the corner, sending orange light dancing on the walls. The stranger gestured for Amina to come in. She stepped inside slowly, her bare feet touching the cold floor for a moment before she found a small rug near the fire. The warmth wrapped around her like a soft blanket. The stranger took off his hood. His face was old and kind, with wrinkles that showed years of worry and kindness. He smiled gently at Amina. "You are safe here," he said softly. Amina's teeth still chattered, but she nodded. "Thank you." The stranger moved to a wooden table and opened a small bag. He pulled out a thick, warm blanket and wrapped it around Amina's thin shoulders. The blanket smelled of lavender and pine. Next, he took out a small loaf of bread and a cup of warm milk. Amina's eyes widened. She had not eaten in days. "Eat," the stranger said. Amina took the bread slowly. It was soft and warm, fresh like the bread in the bakery, but this time it was given with kindness, not anger. She took a small bite and felt the warm food fill her empty stomach. Tears came to her eyes again, but this time they were tears of relief. "Why did you help me?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The stranger looked away, his eyes darkening for a moment. Then he smiled sadly. "Because I remember what it is to be alone, to be cold, to be hungry." Amina looked up. "Are you alone too?" The stranger nodded slowly. "Yes, but I try to help those who suffer. People like you." Amina wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust this stranger who had saved her from the cold and pain. They sat quietly for a few minutes. The fire crackled softly. Then the stranger spoke again. "You must be careful now. The villagers will not stop looking for you. They may try to hurt you." Amina's heart beat fast. "What should I do?" "You must hide. Find a safe place. I will help you, but you need to be strong." Amina swallowed hard. She was scared, but something inside her grew stronger. "Where will I go?" she asked. The stranger smiled faintly. "I know a place where you can rest and learn, but first you must promise me something." "Anything," Amina said quickly. "Promise me you will never steal again. Not because you don't need to, but because you are stronger than hunger." Amina looked down at her hands. She remembered the cold ropes, the angry faces. She nodded. "I promise." The stranger reached out and gently touched her cheek. "Good. You are brave." Outside, the wind howled louder, but inside the small room there was peace. After a while, the stranger stood up. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow will be a new day." Amina curled up under the warm blanket. For the first time in a long time, she felt safe. She closed her eyes and dreamed of a better life. Outside the small house, the village was still awake. The angry villagers had not forgotten the girl who had stolen bread. They whispered about her in the cold night. "She will learn the hard way," some said, but others looked up at the dark sky, wondering if maybe, just maybe, something would change. The stranger watched from a distance. His eyes were tired but hopeful. This was only the beginning. The next morning, sunlight peeked through the small cracks in the wooden walls. Amina woke slowly, wrapped tightly in the warm blanket. The room was quiet except for the soft crackling of the fire. For the first time in many nights, she felt safe. The stranger was already awake, sitting near the window. He was looking outside, at the village covered in snow. His eyes were thoughtful, as if remembering something far away. Amina sat up and rubbed her tired eyes. She felt the hunger returning, but the bread and milk from last night still comforted her. She wanted to ask the stranger more about himself, but she was also curious about her own past. "Can you tell me your name?" Amina asked softly. The stranger smiled gently. "You can call me Elias." "Amina," she said. "Thank you for saving me, Elias." He nodded. "You are brave to survive so far, but you must be stronger. Your past is not forgotten." Amina looked down, thinking about her mother. Her mother had disappeared when Amina was very young. No one in the village talked about her. Amina only had small, broken memories, a kind smile, a soft voice, and a promise to never give up. Elias saw her sadness and reached into a small wooden box on the table. He took out an old photograph, worn at the edges. Amina's eyes grew wide when she saw it. The photo showed a woman holding a little girl's hand. The woman looked strong but tired. The little girl's face was happy and hopeful. "That woman," Elias said quietly, "was once here. She left to protect you." Amina touched the photo gently. "That looks like my mother." Elias nodded. "She had to leave because the village was not safe for her or you." Amina's heart ached. She had always wondered why her mother left. Now she had one answer, but many more questions. "Why didn't she come back?" Amina asked. "Sometimes," Elias said, "people leave to make sure the ones they love can live. Your mother's love is stronger than distance." Amina looked out the window, watching the cold village. She felt a new fire inside her, a wish to find her mother one day and to be free from fear. Elias stood and opened a small door in the back of the room. He revealed a hidden shelf filled with books and small boxes. "These are for you," he said. "Knowledge can make you strong. You will learn many things here." Amina smiled for the first time in days. She reached for a small book with bright pictures. The stories inside were about courage and hope. Days passed quickly. Elias taught Amina how to read, how to think clearly, and how to be brave. He told stories about faraway places and people who changed their worlds. But Amina never forgot the village or the cold night tied to the post. She wanted to help those who suffered like her. One day, while reading an old book, Amina found a small letter hidden between the pages. It was written in careful handwriting. Elias saw her holding it and said, "That letter is from your mother. She wrote it before she left." Amina's hands trembled as she opened the letter. The words were simple but full of love. "My dear Amina, I hope you are safe. I am sorry I had to leave, but one day I will come back. Be strong. Believe in yourself. Remember, you are never alone." Tears filled Amina's eyes. She hugged the letter close to her heart. Elias watched quietly. He knew this letter was the key to Amina's hope. But the village was still cold and dangerous. The cruel leader still held power. Amina's heart knew the fight was not over. One evening, Elias told her, "You are ready now. It is time to face your past and the village." Amina looked at him with fear and courage mixed in her eyes. "I will try," she said softly. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees. The snow covered every secret. The story of Amina's past was just beginning to unfold. The sun was low, in the sky, casting long shadows over the snowy fields. Amina stood at the edge of the forest, looking back at the small cottage where Elias had sheltered her. The warmth and safety she had known there felt far away now. She took a deep breath, wrapping her thin coat tighter around her small frame. Her heart pounded with fear and determination. Today, she would return to the village, the place where she was once punished, where cold eyes watched her suffer. Elias walked beside her quietly. "Are you ready?" he asked softly. Amina nodded. "I have to be. For my mother, for myself." The walk back was difficult. The snow made every step heavy, and the cold bit at their faces. But Amina did not complain. She thought about the letter from her mother and the promise she made to never steal again. As they neared the village, the familiar sounds reached her. The harsh voices of villagers, the creak of old wooden doors, and the distant barking of dogs. People stopped and stared when they saw Amina. Some whispered behind their hands, others looked away, avoiding her eyes. But no one came forward to help. The village leader, the same cold man who had punished her, appeared at the center of the square. His eyes narrowed as he saw her. "Look who has returned," he sneered. "The little thief who thinks she can come back." Amina felt a lump in her throat, but stood tall. "I am not the same girl," she said quietly. "I have learned. I am not here to steal or cause trouble." The villagers murmured among themselves. Some looked skeptical, others curious. Elias stepped forward. "She has changed. She deserves a chance." The leader laughed coldly. "Chance? This village has no place for criminals." Amina looked at the leader, her voice steady. "I was hungry, and you punished me. But now, I want to help." She shared her story about her mother, the stranger who saved her, and the lessons she learned. Some villagers softened. They remembered the hard times and the kindness Amina showed despite everything. But the leader shook his head. "You will need to prove yourself." He gave her a hard task, to work in the bakery, under watchful eyes, and show she had changed. Amina accepted the challenge. She knew it would not be easy, but it was her chance to belong. Elias smiled proudly. "I will be here if you need me." The first day at the bakery was tough. People watched every move she made. Some were kind. Others were cold and doubtful. But Amina worked hard, learning quickly. She smiled, helped others, and never gave up. Slowly, the villagers began to change their minds. They saw the girl who once stole bread was now the girl who shared it. One evening, as Amina closed the bakery, the leader approached her. "You may have earned your place," he said quietly. "But remember, the village is watching." Amina nodded, understanding the challenge was far from over. As the sun set behind the snowy hills, Amina felt hope and fear mixing inside her. Her journey was just beginning, and the village would never be the same. Winter's cold held the village tightly, but inside Amina's small room above the bakery there was a quiet warmth. The days passed with hard work, and nights filled with silent dreams of change. Amina had earned a place in the village, but her heart knew the pain was not over. The cruel leader still held power, and many villagers still whispered behind closed doors. She could not forget the night she was tied up in the snow. The shame and fear still lived inside her. One evening, as the bakery closed, Elias arrived quietly at the back door. Amina's eyes lit up when she saw him. "I have a plan," Elias said in a low voice. "A way to help not just you, but many others like you." Amina listened carefully as Elias explained. The village was ruled by fear, and the leader used the people's pain to keep control. But if they could show the villagers a better way, if they could bring hope, maybe things would change. "We need to gather the villagers in secret," Elias said. "Tell them the truth about kindness and how helping each other is stronger than punishment." Amina nodded slowly. "But how?" "The leader watches everything. We must be careful," Elias warned. "We will use the old barn, far from the village. Only those who truly want to listen will come." For days they prepared. Amina helped spread quiet messages, slipping notes into hands and whispering in ears. Slowly, some villagers began to listen, those tired of fear, tired of cold nights, and hunger. On a cold, clear night, the barn filled with people. The air was heavy with hope and fear. Elias stepped forward, his voice strong and clear. "We have lived too long in fear. It is time to change. We must help each other, not punish." Amina stood beside him, her heart pounding. She shared her story, how she was punished for stealing bread, how Elias saved her, and how kindness changed her life. Tears filled the eyes of many villagers. They remembered their own pain and the pain they caused. The leader's men had heard rumors and watched closely, but the meeting remained a secret. After the meeting, small acts of kindness began to spread. Bread was shared without fear. Doors were opened to those in need, but danger remained. The leader would not give up power easily. Amina and Elias knew the path ahead was long and hard, but for the first time, the village had a chance. Hope was alive. The village had begun to change, but the cold shadow of fear still lingered. Amina could feel it in the glances from some villagers. in the silence of the nights and in the dark eyes of the leader. Despite the secret meetings and growing kindness, the leader's anger grew stronger. He could not allow his power to fade. One morning, Amina was working at the bakery when two of the leader's men came inside. Their faces were hard and their eyes cold. "You have caused trouble," one said. "The leader wants to speak with you." Amina's heart raced. She knew this meeting would not be easy. She followed the men to the village square, where the leader waited, surrounded by his guards. "Why do you spread lies of kindness?" the leader demanded. "Do you think this village will forget justice and punishment?" Amina stood firm. "Justice is not punishment. We must help each other, not hurt." The leader laughed cruelly. "You are young and foolish. This village belongs to me." He turned to the guards. "Take her away." But before they could move, villagers stepped forward. One by one, people who had been touched by Amina's kindness stood beside her. "We want peace," an old woman said. "We want hope." The leader's face darkened. "You betray me." He raised his hand to shout orders, but a sudden shout stopped him. "It is time for change." Elias appeared, holding a small torch. Behind him came more villagers, brave and ready to stand against fear. The leader's guards hesitated, unsure what to do. The village square filled with tension. Fear battled hope. Amina looked around. She saw the faces of people who once ignored her, now ready to fight for a new way. The leader took a step back, realizing his power was slipping. "Enough," he shouted. "This is not over." But the villagers would not back down. The battle for the village's soul had begun. The village was silent but alive with change. The cold winter winds still blew, but inside the hearts of the villagers a new warmth was growing. Amina stood in the village square, surrounded by people she once feared. Their eyes were no longer filled with suspicion but with hope. The cruel leader had lost his grip, and the village was ready to heal. Elias stood beside her, a quiet smile on his face. "You did it, Amina. You showed them a better way." Amina looked out over the crowd. "We did it together." The leader had been forced to leave, his power broken by the strength of kindness and unity. The villagers had chosen hope over fear. Amina's heart felt light but full. She knew her journey was far from over, but this was a start. She thought of her mother's letter, the promise of love and courage that had guided her through the darkest days. Suddenly, a figure appeared at the edge of the crowd. A woman, worn but strong, stepped forward. Her eyes met Amina's, and in that moment time seemed to freeze. "Mother?" Amina whispered. The woman smiled, tears in her eyes. "I never stopped searching for you." The crowd gasped, and a wave of emotion swept through the village. Amina ran to her mother's arms, feeling a warmth she had longed for her whole life. Elias watched quietly, proud of the family reunited and the village reborn. The snow began to melt as spring approached, and with it came new beginnings. Amina knew there would be challenges ahead, but surrounded by love and hope, she was ready to face anything. The village had learned a powerful lesson. Even in the coldest winter, the smallest acts of kindness could bring a new dawn.